Hi, welcome to another episode of building a full stack application using the Neat stack. Uh, what we have done last, just a recap. What we have done last in the last episode is we have built out the update the update feature. Okay, so we perform an update. Uh, what we're going to do this week is we are going to implement a hold to delete. Right, though assuming that I want to delete this application, so if I click on this guy, I will able to perform delete instead of just perform clicking on delete. Uh, what we're going to do is that we're going to implement a feature which we will hold for X number of seconds, and this number of seconds is configurable by the user. And once the duration has elapsed, the a delete function will kick in to delete the bot. This idea came while I was looking through YouTube, and uh, and I found similar features, and I found a similar function. I thought it was pretty cool, so I would like to add this to to our application. Uh, what this tutorial will show you, what this episode will show you is a few things. First of all, that we are going to develop a directive instead of a component. A directive is like it's like an attribute, an element attribute that we attach to a tag, to an element. So far, we have been uh, building Angular application using component. Today, we are going to we're going to build a directive. That's the first one. The second one is we are going to look more closely or more in depth into one of the core libraries in Angular, which the which is the React RxJS library. Uh, the observables library concept is central to Angular, and is used in a lot of areas in an Angular application. We have seen some of it when we create our own custom events. Today we will look at more sophisticated use of uh, observables. As usual, before we start, I will create another branch. Okay, I'm going to call it part 12. Okay, just to see that part 12. Right, so now we will go into our application and we'll start the application. Right, this is what I'll do. Oops, not here. This is what I'll do. In our update, which corresponds to this page, I will create, I will here, I will create an attribute called hold to delete attribute. Let's see how this attribute is created. I'll use uh, the Angular CLI to generate the, uh, the, the class for us. It's actually only one file, but I would like to show it to you. So we go ng generate D for directive, or you can type off the full uh, the spell it out by saying directive. I'm going to put it in keyboard directives directory, and then I'm going to call it hold to delete. I'll go flat and skip test. I'm not going to generate any tests, and that's going to generate one file called hold to delete directive. And if you come back here, you'll see this file here. Notice that the selector is now has a square bracket around it, and this is the CSS notation for an attribute. Instead of calling it app hold to delete, I'm just going to modify it to hold to delete. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to add this directive here. Let me just put it in a new line. Hold to delete. The way this is going to work is we're going to hold on this directive. Okay? To make this work, the directive, we have to listen to the click. Unlike a component where we can just attach like a click to it, we can't like do a click. Oops. We can't like do a click here. Okay. For a directive, what you need to do is this. We need to we need to listen to a click button instead of explicitly uh, attaching a listener to the click button, to the click event. Okay? So this is how it, let me see. Okay, so this is how it works. We'll go back to the file here. Okay, and what we'll do is this: we will create two methods called mouse down and mouse up, and on these two methods, we will annotate it with host listener. Host listener uh, acts like a event binding, but this is for directive host listener. Okay. And then we can say this event is a mouse down event, uh, and this is the host listener, and this is the mouse up event. By the way, you can use the host listener uh, on elements as well. Okay, on custom elements as well. And we will now just do this. I'm just going to go console info. I'll just console out the events mouse down, and then I'll say mouse up. Okay, so let's see how this works. Now, if I hold this down, oops, sometimes let me just do that, and let me reload this thing. Okay, so let me see if there's an error. Okay, no error. Right, so if I go mouse down, hold to delete. Let me just check again. Hold to delete. Okay, the delete. Okay, so let's try this again. Okay, there we go. I do not know why that doesn't work. Okay, so we go down, mouse down. So now if I release, I go mouse up, mouse down, mouse up, mouse down, mouse up. Right. What we would like to do now is this: when I hold down when I hold the mouse button down, I want to start a timer. Okay, so that timer will count. Will 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 just run for will run continuously. Okay. So this is what I'll do. On the mouse down, I'm going to start an interval. The interval is an observable that comes from the RxJS library. Okay, so let me just define a constant here. And I want the time slice to be 100 millisecond. Okay, so this is my time slice. So I'll go like this. Interval. Okay. And then what I'll do is this, I'll subscribe to this event here, like this. So I would say v console info, just show v like that. Okay. So now let's try that again. If we click on this, you'll notice that now the event. So every one of this is print, every 100 millisecond, right? Now let's do that again. So that's going to run. What we like to do now is this: if I release the button, if I release the mouse, if I release my mouse, then I want this to stop. Okay. So to do that, I'm going to create a subject. But before I do that, let me explain how this works first. What I'll do is this: I'll create an RxJS a subject, RxJS, and an RxJS subject. Think of an RxJS subject like a pipe, which has got an observable. An observable is an event source that generates event, and then since it's a pipe, we can have an observer at the other end. So someone looking at here. What we'll do is this: we will look for. So we will create this subject. Every time when we release the button, and the observer will just look at the event stream that is coming out from this subject. When we release the mouse button, we will fire a true, and when the observer sees the event, it will allow the true event pass. It will not allow any of the false event to go through. We only look at true events. Okay, so let me show you how this works. So we got two things. We need to create a subject. From the subject, we will create an observer observing the subject. Okay. If that is confusing, let me show the code and then I'll explain it again. So what I'm going to do now is this. I will now define uh, uh, a subject called button state. Okay, and this is going to be a subject. We have seen subject in previous episode where we used to create custom events, and this is going to return a Boolean event. Okay, so this is what we're going to do. When we release the mouse, I'm just going to say this button state next true. Okay, so when the mouse is up, we'll just say true. Otherwise, we don't say anything. Okay, we don't fire any event, right? So we've got this part here. When we release the button, we will fire true. Now, what we need to do is this. We need to create an observer to observe the true events. So again, we'll create, we'll call this mouse up. Mouse up. Then we'll say, sorry, this is an observer. It's an observer. And it's going to observe the Boolean event. Okay. So what we'll do is this. We'll say the mouse up observer is constructed from the button state. We'll go pipe. Okay, we create a pipe. So we create an observer. And then what we're going to do is this. We're going to create a filter. Wait. Okay, we'll create a filter like so. So we'll say filter, okay, which will. So since this is since the when we fire through here, the event will sort of appears in the pipe, and then the filter will examine if it's true. So since it's a Boolean, we just return this, right? And if this is true, then the true event will get passed on to the observer. Okay? So since one line, I'm just going to let me just do this. Put this like this. Okay. So we'll pipe it through this. Now, in this event stream, in a time event stream, so as the we have interval, so that the interval observer is going to release 0, 1, 2, 3, etc. So what we're going to do is this: we're going to say continue to perform this until you see the mouse up event, until you see the true event that is being generated from the button. And the way to do that is this: from the interval, we will create an observer. Okay, and then we will say take until, okay, this mouse up. So it's going to continue taking until the mouse up, until we get a mouse up event. Okay, so let's see, button state. Let's see, there's an error here. Let's do error. Observer is missing. Oh, observable. Sorry, observable. Okay, so observable. Let me remove that from here. So use the wrong library. Observable. Okay. Okay. Let's see how this thing works. So now, if I hold on to this, it's going to continue going. If I release, it now stops. See that? Let's try that again. So we go again. So now we release. So when we release the button, we fire true. It comes out on the other end. The true comes out of this end. Because it's true, the filter will allow it to go through. Okay. So it comes up here. So the observer, so in this in this observer, in this uh, in this observer, it will monitor, will continue to pump out events to the subscriber until we see the mouse up event. Then we will stop. Okay. And the really nice thing about this is this. Remember in the previous episode, we said that when you subscribe, when you perform a subscribe, you need to actually unsubscribe. The nice thing about take until is that you automatically unsubscribe. So we can actually see this here. So in the subscribe, there are actually three channels, three functions you can put in. The first function, this is the first function. Uh, this is the observer. The second one is error. So during the course of this, during the course of passing events from the source, from the observable to the observer, if there is any error, the second method will be called. Since I'm not interested in the error, so I'm going to put null. And the third one is when the event, when the observable is closed, when the subscription closes, the third function will be called. So let me just put something here. I'll say completed. Okay. So notice that now, when I click on this, when I release, it will say completed. Mouse up, completed. Okay, right? Okay. So that's one way of stopping, right? Is when I release the mouse. The second way of stopping, what I want to do is this. I want to allow the user of this hold to delete button to specify a duration, how long to hold, right? And when it reaches that duration, I want to stop this counting process as well. Okay, so what we do is this. First of all, we will define an input, okay, an input into this directive that allows a user to say, how long do you want to hold. So I will call this hold to delete duration. Let's set the default to 1 second. Okay, right? So what I'll do is this. I will convert the value here to a progress, to 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 a percentage by doing this. I'll use a map here. Okay, I'll put a map here. And then what I'll do is this, I'll take the value. Okay, and what I will have the value, and then I will say v times interval divided by this duration. Okay, and since I want percentage, I'll just multiply that by 100. Right. So let's have a look at this. Let's have a look at this. If I hold this, so now notice that instead of numbers, we now get percentages, right? And I want to stop when it reaches 100%, right? So I think I can do it here. So I will say if v is greater than or equals to 100, right? I will fire the stop event. And the way I fire a stop event is to do exactly the same as this line 45 down here. I will say this button state next true. Right? So let's have a look at this. So one way to stop is if I release before reaching 100. And the second way is if I continue holding down and when it reaches 100, it will stop by itself. So now my directive is complete. What I want to do is this. I would like to, fire this percentage or this progress as events so that whoever is using it can listen to this progress and do something with these percentages. So to do that, I will define a custom event using the output. And I'll say hold to delete progress. And this is going to be a subject. And we're going to return number. So like that. So what we do, we go this, go to delete progress, next, and then we pass fire the value. Okay. So let's try this out. I'm going to delete this thing here, and then we will now go to this component. So we need to define a listener for the event. So let's do this. I'm going to say progress, and this is the progress, which is a number. And then I'll just console log out first. Okay. And I'll just say progress. So let's go back to here. I'll leave the duration at 1 second. So I'll say hold to delete progress, which is equals to progress, and then I want the value, so I need to pass in the event object like that. Okay. So that's our. So this is the event for the attribute for our directive, hold to delete directive. So now let's hold this. Oops. Let me delete all for and see. Okay. Oh, I made a mistake here. Right. I should fire whenever I come in here. Right. That's my mistake. Right. So now let's do that. We hold this, we notice that, and then we stop. Okay. Okay. I'm also going to define a second method called expired. These are for generally, if you're not interested, in the progress, you may want to say, fire when the time has elapsed, right? When I say, after 1 second of holding for 1 second, I want to let the user know that, that the time has elapsed, right? It has expired. This is hold to delete expired, and then it's going to be a subject as well. And this is not going to return any number, it's just going to return what. So we fire this when we reach 100%. Like so. Now we can come here to this component, and then we can say hold to delete expired. Okay, so we're going to delete. We're just going to create a method called delete. And here, so this is delete. So I'll say console info delete bot, and then I'm just going to display the bot ID. Okay, so let's see. So let's go back here. We're going to we add the hold to delete directive on this button. As we hold, the progress of how long we've been holding is passed to the callback progress. We can do something with this. And then when the time has expired, so default value is 1000, hold to progress, the default is 1001 second. So when 1 second has elapsed, it's going to fire the hold to delete expired, and then it's going to call this function, this handler, event handler, and then this method is going to fire. Okay, let's see how this works. I will hold, and finally, notice that this is the delete, the expired button. Okay, so our hold to delete directive is complete. What I would like to do now is this. I'm going to use the progress to perform some animation on here. Like maybe when I hold, when I click on this, I want to have a little progress that shows that I am how long more before before the time expires, the duration expires. So what I will do is this. I'm going to define here. I'm going to call this button style. I'm going to say none. What I'll do is this. I will bind the button style to the style STY style, background image. This is going to be button style. Okay. Another cool thing about Angular is that you can do attribute binding directly on CSS elements like this. So the style attribute, the background. Okay. So this is equivalent to saying this. Background image, like none, right? Like that. Okay. Right. So the background image is going to change according to what is defined, what is bound to. So the button style. So currently it is nothing, none. So if we go back, okay, so if we go back to here, so nothing happens yet. What I'm going to do is this. Now I'm going to vary this color here by using linear gradient, the CSS linear gradient. So this is what I do. So I'm going to say if P is less than or equals to 0, so if it's nothing, if progress is 0, then I'm going to just say this button style is equals to none. Okay. Else, so this button style is equals to, oops, I want this linear gradient. So I'm using this, okay. Linear gradient. So I'm going to use I'm going to specify the gradient and then two colors and then the percentage of how much they occupy. Linear gradient. So I'll say to left. Okay. Right? So RGB. So the color I want is light gray. So light gray is 220. And then the alpha color I want 0.4. And the percentage will be 100 minus P. Like that. And then I'll do the same thing again, RGB. So this is 0, 0, 0. So only one color. I'm going to only specify one color. And then this is 0%. Okay, so this is 0% here. Okay, so it's 0%. Right, so we perform the calculation. So this is going to minus off from here. So let's see how this thing works. Let me check if there's any error. So we will do like this. So notice that. So if I release, this will stop. Well, I should probably send a 0 so that I can turn off the animation. So let me do that. Let me come back to here. Once it's completed, let me do this. Let me go this progress. Then we'll say next 0. Okay. Let's try this again. Click. So if I release this, it will automatically go back to the solid color. Notice, right? But if I continue holding, it's going to eventually reach 100, and then it's going to call my delete board button. Right? So now, in my delete board, I'm going to actually perform the delete. So for this, I will need to go to my kboard service and to define a method called delete board. Okay. Most of you, if you come from a OO background, OO allows you to define what we call overloaded. You can overload a method with different signature, but unfortunately in TypeScript you can't. So I'm going to use a union type to do this. So I'm going to say this type can either be a string, in which case we pass in a board ID, or we can pass in the kboard object. Okay, and the delete board is going to return a promise that holds nothing. Okay. So we're going to do this. We'll say let BID is of type string. Now we check if is equals to object. So we'll see if the type of B is equal to object. If it's equals to object, this is what we do. We will cast it, we will assert it to a kboard. So say B as kboard, and then from there we're going to get the board ID. Otherwise, you just say board ID is equals to B, right? And then now we're going to perform a delete by doing this. Return this boards delete. So delete actually takes the key. Okay. And delete returns a promise. So let's look at it again. Delete returns a promise. Okay. So we'll just go PID like that. So what you do is this: when the delete function is called, when the delete callback is called, we go this kboard service delete board. You pass in the board. You can either pass in board. We have both board ID and board. So let's pass in board, and then we will say we don't have to listen to Dan. We're not interested in success because it doesn't return anything. We just handle the error. So if there's any error, we'll console error out. We say error delete board, and then we'll display the error. Okay. Otherwise, we will go back to our list of bots. Okay. After we have performed the delete, we'll do this navigate to that. Okay. So let's try running this guy and see what happens. Okay, I don't want to delete this bot. Let me just go and create one bot to delete. So bot, do this. Okay, so now I can hold. So once that expires, we delete the bot, we navigate back to the main page. Okay, so if we do that, we go, we release, nothing happens. So if we continue holding, it's going to delete that. Okay, so this is the end of this episode. One thing you'll notice is this: if I now perform a change here, like this, and I didn't do update, but I go back, I would have lost my updates. Okay, right? I will have lost my update. So in the next episode, what we'll do is this: we'll create a guard called can deactivate guard, where before we navigate back to the to this list page, what we'll do is this: we will ask if ask the component, ask this update component or any component, if we can navigate away. And so this will be like, sometimes when you try to close a tab, you see, are you really sure you want to close the tab? So we'll implement something something like that, where if I've modified a page, if I modify a bot, but I've not saved it, I've not performed a save, the bot, I should actually check with the user to see if if he should perform this navigation. Okay, so that will be in the next episode. Till then, I will see you in the next episode. What I'll do is this: I will save today's work. I'll commit today's work under the part 12 branch. Okay, so till then, stay safe.